kitendawili tegwa. Hey everyone, welcome to the big picture with African Uncensored this week.
She just said the picture.
I did.
I
did. No, I'm not doing equality.
My name is Barak. I have no other element of introduction.
We might be smaller. We might have not so shiny beards, but I promise you, we are younger and we are funnier.
Once again, ready to steal John Alanamo's job and Tom's spot as a co-host is the crowd roars. I'm Abigail Arunga, your co-host.
I guess for those who like politics.
I met so many sounds. I was like, we're going to give you like a sound meter. Like, give Abigail a sound meter, like just like write
say
down.
Something, say something. Get it off your chest.
Yes. The news came in. Raila dropped her in the 6th round. Mahmoud won the AUC chair position. And I tweeted, kitendawili tegwa.
I try to be careful, you guys. I try to be better than most people. I try not to put corsets between my Instagram stories, which I could.
But the fact that this percentage is so large and we're still having things like there's only one doctor who can confirm that you're assaulted. Yeah. The cops will tell you if it's domestic, it doesn't matter. We're still reporting as journalists, right? About how it's a love spat gone wrong. No, guy, it's a murder.
Crime of passion.
It's not a crime of passion. It's not a relationship gone sour. It's not teenage pregnancies in Machakos increased during the pandemic. It's assaulters who are raping these children.
On the same notes, but I'll let you read them.
Oh, so you guys
like have some notes
together.
Yeah.
You have notes together. Okay, I see what's happening. DCI really likes to not do their job. We don't want the essays on Twitter. We just want you to find the things that we've asked you to find.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can't be giving me bullets one day and then flowers the next. That's like a rat. You know, like.
Yes.
Stop doing that. What are you doing? Our problem is not money. Our problem is mismanagement. Yes. And we continue to mismanage. And because we continue to mismanage, they feel like they can continue to borrow.
Do you guys know the role of the AUC chairperson before we get into the results?
Wow. Yeah. The role looks like to spend inordinate amounts of money from tax-paying citizens to have a figurehead that makes proclamations that have nothing to do with anything that's going on the ground. That's not the role.
Shout out to every single cultural creator on this particular continent. I think Africa as a cultural hub would be so beautiful.
We all enjoy human rights, but we're able to enjoy the average person in each country is able to enjoy a good basis of living. Have education, have healthcare, and just have dignity and dignified work.
And I don't know if we're not angry enough or we feel too helpless to do anything about it. I'm not sure what exactly the problem is. But until everyone's paycheck is at zero, we're like not gonna do anything.
Welcome to this episode of The Big Picture. Now, big picture, big guests as usual, and big conversations. My name is Thomas Okwana, and I'm your host today, but I'm not doing it alone, lucky for you. I'm joined by 3 amazing guests, and that includes my co-host, actually, Justine Wanda. So, before I let you introduce yourself, Justine, wageni wanafaa kutangulia, si ndio? So, I'll start with the farthest left. Christine, I would do an injustice introducing you. I think I'll just say the first line. Christine Mungai, the curator at Baraza Media Lab. But Christine, I'll let you introduce yourself. You do much better.
All right. I think you're doing great.
That's a start.
Yeah, I'll just add that I'm a freelance journalist, apart from working here at the lab, being a director of Baraza Media Lab. Freelance means that I'm very much taking assignments, pitching stories. I'm a working journalist. I've been in this media space for a long time, and I still feel like I have many more stories to tell. Yeah.
All right, that's much better than I did, you see. And then there's Dr. Joseph Mugashia. I wouldn't do justice introducing you first, but you're an expert in so many things: international relations, governance, policy. Please tell us more.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Joseph Mugashia, and I'm a businessman to start with. That's what I do for a living.
Yeah.
Even when I do technical work, it's for business. I am an analyst in leadership and governance, and I've also worked a lot in international settings with the United Nations in Iraq, Jordan, Cyprus, Nigeria, and others. And here in Kenya, I am also a politician. But my politics is about good leadership and governance, what we are calling alternative leadership. I am a co-convener of the Concerned Citizens Movement, which advocates for alternative leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ari. And it's good that we have you here because a third of what we're going to be discussing today is going to be things that are happening outside Kenya but relate to Kenya. By that I mean UAE, the Sudan conflict, and M23 in DRC. And I'm sure that a lot of things will spill over into our discussions that might demand your competence. So thank you. Justine, for like the umpteenth time, please tell us who you are.
Hey everyone, I'm Justine. I am your regular yapper. Thank you so much for having me. And it's an incredible honor to be among very, very amazing people today. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
So Christine, I think we'll get back into this later on, but you're going to be telling us about the Africa Media Festival.
Yes.
That's happening later this week.
Yes.
Yeah, let's not spill the beans yet. Let's keep it for later. But a lot of things have happened in the past week. We've had a principal secretary, someone who sits in one of the highest positions in government, sharing a fake AI video. And it was basically a spit in the face of Kenyans, telling you you don't know, and here's a guy who's telling you the right thing, and you should be on our side. But above all, I think a report dropped silently like a Drake album. A report dropped from the Auditor General that looked into counties' expenditure and their books, and a lot of things came out of that report that we'll be discussing. But first, let's look at that video. I don't know if you can pull that up, but Principal Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Korir Sing'Oei, shared a video sometime last week, Thursday last week to be specific. And it's a video of Farid Zakaria, a presenter at CNN. It's completely fake. I'll just crash his party as we start speaking about this. But Justine, I know you have a lot of things to say about that video. Personally, I found it to be very distasteful because the caption. Let me just find that caption. But it was a caption that insinuated that Kenyans do not know what they're saying, and he is a foreign journalist who knows better than you. And I think what he labeled it was fake analysts.
Yes, he called Kenyans who've been very concerned about our foreign relations, fake analysts. Just because some of us are chronically online doesn't mean we don't read or we don't research about the topics, and people are always constantly asking. So I think the thing that really threw me off about that particular video is like when you open it, the first few seconds, you're like, the audio is not in sync with what Farid is saying. And I was like, if you're going to share a video like this, you should be able to know if it's a real video or not. Considering he does have a background, I think he did a training on AI and
Give a whole speech.
Yes.
He gave a whole speech.
A couple of, I think, months back, if I'm not wrong. And he's been very, he's quote unquote a progressive. Yeah. So this was very shocking to see because our foreign relations are being manipulated using this particular method, and we're just supposed to be fake analysts who should shut up about foreign affairs. So that was my point of concern. Yeah. So I'm curious to hear, especially from...
I don't know if Dr. saw that video. Did you see the post?
I saw a bit of it.
What did you think?
I actually didn't see the whole of it. I just looked at it and I said, this is fake, right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, for CNN to have, Farid Zakaria is somebody who is a very, very accomplished journalist. And he's also, fairly well trained in foreign affairs. So for him to come and start talking about the Kenyan situation, just from nowhere, it is not possible. It does not work like that. Secondly, there is that disconnect that you have talked about. There was no coordination of what is being said and what Farid appears to be saying. So looking at it from the beginning, it was fake. Now people are saying, you know, this was deep fake. There is nothing like a deep fake. That's what I want to say. I know technically there is. That it is so good you cannot tell whether it is fake or real. But then we have always had fakes, right from even when we didn't have digital. I remember when I worked at the Nation Media sometime in the early 80s, and there used to be people who would come with documents made from supermarkets in Canada, and they would be looking for people to employ, and that would be conmanship. But if you looked at those documents, to the gullible, they looked very authentic.
They do.
But when you look at them critically, you're going to see some things that don't add up, even the ends of sentences and all this. So now when we have technology and we also have knowledge, it is unfortunate that we can have such a video being peddled by a highly senior government official. It should not happen.
And this is somebody who's supposed to be formulating policy. It's often said that the principal secretary is supposed to be the most technical person in a ministry, and that the minister is just the face of the whole organization and how it's supposed to be organized. But he deleted it immediately after that.
No, it did. It was like 4 hours old.
It did. It's 4 hours.
Yes, it was up for a very long time, because I remember I saw it. I think it had already been up for an hour or something. And I thought if enough people are quoting it and telling him it's fake, he's going to remove it. And he didn't. And all of us were wondering, like, isn't the page at least run by someone who's online or like is getting notifications? I personally think them leaving it up for a while was intentional, because I had to check if it's actually his account. I thought it was like one of those parody ones. But it's not. So I think it was scary that people kept telling him to take it down, and there was no action for at least 6 hours, if I'm not wrong.
But for me, what worries me is, and I'll ask you, Christine, this question. For me, it looked like that was very intentional.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, at first it looked like a mistake. It looked like an honest mistake. But then after sitting on it for a while and looking at what other politicians posted, it didn't add up.
I saw the so-called apology afterwards when he said, "I'm sorry, I was misled, it's honest mistake, my bad." But I honestly don't think it was a mistake. I think it was quite deliberate. And if we are to look at a track record, this administration and the one before it was very, very interested in narratives, in shaping public opinion, and sometimes in just muddying the waters of honest public debate.
Very true.
And I think this is one of those tactics. I don't believe that this was accidental.
I think just
it was what Dr. said. It was so bad that there's no way that you can say that it was.
That.
Yeah, I mean, like a deep fake, like he's saying, is like, oh my God, it's so polished, I couldn't tell. But this one, after 2 seconds, after looking at the font misalignment,
the lip movements, they didn't align.
Out of I don't buy it.
But to what end?
Something I would like to add. It's unfortunate that we now have a government that has taken comedy in leadership to the highest level you can imagine. I mean, you cannot even hear something that is coming from the government and you believe it at the first instant. I recall, I happen to be the oldest here, I think. Oh yeah, sure. I'm the oldest
100%.
So
I promise you.
I am 102.
So I remember the times of Kenyatta, Jomo, the first Kenyatta. That is Jomo Kenyatta. And what the government said was the truth. And you would have to go and you would have to really be very, very much aware to know that it's not the truth. Because most of what the government told you was something that you could trace back to an official, and you would also trace it back to a genuine action. But today, when you're told something by the government, the first thing you say is, okay, I wait to see. Now, the problem is, this comedy is being taken to such a level that we are becoming a laughing stock, or rather we have become a laughing stock internationally.
Yeah.
If it's education, we have so many fake degrees, fake courses, fake lecturers, including lecturers who are real, but they decide to be fake. Because when a lecturer sits down, or a professor, and writes a thesis for a student, now what do you call that? It's a deep fake in action, because it's very difficult for you to know that. But it's happening. Now, and this is really, really destroying our international image. I'll tell you today, if you're going to migrate into another country, the embassies are asking to verify your documents themselves. Not the way they used to tell us, go and bring the document with a notary public signature that is notarized. Today they tell you, okay, leave us with the documents, we'll verify ourselves. Why? Because they don't trust the government. So we need to be serious, and we need to come back to the rule of law in governance.
It's really worrying that your first instinct when you hear the president say anything is he's lying. I think that's very worrying for the government in general. But let's get to the core of that tweet. The tweet was speaking about something that's happening in Sudan that involves Kenya. And one thing that should give Kenyans sleepless nights is that Kenya is actively supporting genocide. And by that I mean supporting the RSF, housing RSF here in Kenya. I'm 100% sure there is a lot of money that is flowing from RSF into Kenyan organizations. And by that I mean the places where they host these events, because obviously they need conference centers. The talents that they need to run those communications and bring all those people together into these places, those are Kenyans. And if you look at RSF, it's blamed for killing tens of thousands of Sudanese people, a proper genocide. And you have the president and Musalia Mudavadi, who's the Prime Cabinet Secretary, a very unconstitutional office, but that's another discussion. He's endorsing in a long tweet a decree that was signed by a bunch of organizations that ratifies RSF as a government in Sudan. Now that removes an entirely different party who's at the center of this, SAF, the Sudan Armed Forces. This very partisan side that Kenya is taking, what do you make of it? I think I'll start with you, Justine. You have a ton of opinions about this, obviously.
I think my biggest point of concern is, like, if Kenya is hosting a militia that is known and is funded, who else is getting that money? It can't just be the talents, like the people who are at the conference and the people running the thing, who at the very top is taking this money. Where is this money coming from? Who, and if we're not even thinking about the Sudanese people, their civilian movement, everything that they're fighting for in their sovereignty as a country, and also just to survive a genocide, we are not, how are we even platforming that kind of a militia here? And then the fact that it's been followed by fake, deep fake news. There was a letter sent, there was a letter that I think it read like IGAD had sent that letter, and IGAD came out and they were like, no, we did not send this letter is fake. So every single relation that is very important and critical to the country is being flagged. Like, our neighbors cannot trust us. And this just connects to how Kenyans are being abducted, Ugandans are being abducted, Tanzanians are being abducted. Like, everyone doesn't feel like they're safe in this country. And we're inviting genocidaires into the country, and we're letting them have, not even have a meeting, just formulate a whole charter, sign it, and we're like, no, this is about regional peace. It's like, it's not about regional peace, because if it was about regional peace, we would have the Sudanese government involved, or like at least a representative of the civilian movement involved. But they don't want anything to do with this. A lot of Sudanese people are like, Kenya, you should look out. This is not just going to end with the RSF signing a document here. It's going to come back into our backyard, and it's going to continually harm regular Kenyans who probably don't even have an idea this is happening. So that is, I think, a very big concern for me. It's not just a regional issue. It's not just like the Sudanese people who are harmed, but it's also almost like Kenyans are embracing this very faulty way of doing things with zero accountability. Yeah.
We're causing up to blood money and blood organizations in general, because even if you look at the history of Kenya and who it's been housing from all these conflicts across East Africa, most of the dirty money that is made in these countries flows back into Nairobi, and that's where it's cleaned. But then you also have the leader of SAF, Al Burhan, who's the military general, coming out to say that they will not, the Sudanese people will not accept solutions from other countries. Where does this put Kenya? Because I think some people call Kenya the blue-eyed boy, the boy who sided with, the African man who sided with French authorities and the French government when France was getting kicked out of every other country in Africa. So I don't know, where does this put Kenya, Daktari?
First, I agree with with Justin.
Yeah.
This is very worrying, very, very worrying, because when you are known in the region for peacemaking, peace building, and peacekeeping, these are not the kind of things that you do.
Yeah.
You don't get the rebels or those fighting the sitting government, and you bring them to your country, you host them, no question asked, and then you give them, you let them go ahead and declare that they are forming a parallel government.
Yeah.
What you have done, in essence, is actually a declaration of war. And when you listen to Al Burhan, when he's talking about that Sudan is not going to accept a government formulated from elsewhere and then downloaded in Sudan, that statement is very loaded. It means, in terms of national security for Sudan, it means that we will do whatever is possible to stop what you guys are doing. Now, if you look at Sudan, that's the Sudan, because it's the northern one, it's called the Sudan. We are separated by southern Sudan. So somebody might see it and think, oh, we have a big country in between and we are safe.
Yeah.
But we forget that Africa is highly porous. Secondly, you are not dealing with terrorists here. You are dealing with a government.
Yeah.
And governments have got allies. Governments can also create allies, and sometimes they will even create allies who are pariahs to everybody else. And I would just say, for instance, Al-Shabaab. They are pariahs to everybody else. But if Sudan felt seriously threatened by Kenya, like it is feeling now, then we are trending on very dangerous grounds. And I will talk about this. People may say that, you know, you are giving ideas. This is not about giving ideas. It's about looking at reality. Anywhere where there has been this kind of conflict, where another government, a government takes in a rebel force, the other government, the government from which the rebels come, will either decide to negotiate or decide to fight. But it cannot just keep quiet.
Yeah.
So the faster we correct our mistakes, the better. And we are not going to correct our mistakes by trying to validate the action that was taken by the rebels. Because first of all, there was even no Kenyan government official who was shown in that meeting. You would expect that if it was genuine, then you would be having a Kenyan government official.
Kenyan representative, yeah.
And that would be that they have also talked with the Sudan, and they have agreed, talk to those guys, let them say what they want, let us talk.
Yeah.
But now there was no such agreement. It was simply, guys have come in, they want to form a parallel government, you host them, and I'm sure, I can tell you from experience, they must have been protected. It doesn't happen like that. Try to do that in Uganda, try to do that in the same Sudan. You will find yourself in jail immediately. So, what this does is that it puts Kenya in a very vulnerable situation, where we can start having, armed actions
From within Kenya.
From within.
And without.
But from outside. Brought in from outside.
Yeah.
So for me, I actually call upon Kenyans that we stand our ground and we tell our president that Kenya does not belong to him. It belongs to Kenyans.
To Kenyans in general.
And Kenyans, our foreign policy is one of peace and security.
And security.
So we need to see him model that or implement that policy. To me, this one is a constitutional violation.
It is.
The president is turning out to be the biggest national security threat to the nation.
It really is.
Yeah.
I think in general you're going to have, as things unfold, to look at what forces are pulling the strings in this conflict. Because Kenya is clearly in bed with the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. Now this is all speculation. It's all written somewhere and you can buy it or you cannot. But a lot of the times foreign relation policy aligns itself with foreign interests. So if our interests align, we'll sit on the same side. You look at Kenya and it's heavily getting a lot of funds from the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. And the United Arab Emirates is accused of funding and arming the RSF in Sudan. If you look at all that and how Kenya is playing its cards internationally, you can draw some conclusions in those decisions. Because even if you look at the Middle East, a lot of the Western-aligned Middle Eastern parties, for example, Jordan, shies away from speaking about Palestine. And you see that countries like Israel, who are well aligned with the US, whenever Israel is touched by any Middle Eastern party, the US comes out strongly to defend it. So I think in general, there are a lot of foreign interests that are at play here, but that remains to be something that we can look forward to seeing more exposed in future. Still in foreign relations, there's a love affair that is spilling into the highest offices in Uganda. Well, let's say a jilted lover type of situation, but Kizza Besigye, who was abducted in Nairobi months ago, he's under arrest still. I think he was moved from court-martial from a military jail to a civilian jail, but he's being charged with treason, which is the worst charge anyone can have leveled against them in any government. So Kizza Besigye has a wife, and his wife's name is Winnie Byanyima. She's an aeronautical engineer. She's also, I think, the director of USAID in Africa. UNAIDS. Oh, UNAIDS, not USAID. Okay. UNAIDS. So she's the director of UNAIDS in Africa. She's extremely smart and competent in all ways you can imagine. But she's involved in a war of words with Kainerugaba, who's a military general in Uganda, but also the son. Yeah, he's a CDF, Commander of Defense Forces, but he's also the son of the president, Museveni. This goes decades back, right? The beef is from way back, and I think it's the son standing in for the dad. But I think, Justine, you have a lot to say on this, right?
I don't want to. I actually I'm concerned about like how this story is unfolding. Because the commander of defense forces of any country is supposed to be a serious position. You're supposed to treat every single citizen as someone to protect. So I really don't want to get it. Maybe Christine could have like could chip in here, but
I think what Muhoozi is doing is, first of all, very unhinged. Someone should check on him. Number one. Secondly, I think it's some of the things that we see happening a lot, even here in Kenya, where we just derail the conversation. I think this focus on Winnie Byanyima is really derailing.
Deflection.
What's really happening in Uganda and what's important, which is Museveni is going to 80 years old, if he's not over 80 already. He's been under pressure for the last 3 elections. And now he's getting, we are human beings at the end of the day, Even the longest serving president you can imagine one day comes to the end of his rope, right? And I think he's politically in a very threatened position right now. And I say that because if you're to connect the dots like Justine did just now, this is a young continent. And I think the Kenyan protests of last year inspired a lot of countries in Africa. And even if their own protests, even our own, was thwarted basically by the powerful and the interests at play, at the end of the day, I think something that you can never discount is the imagination of the African people. As they say, you can kill a person, but you can never kill a dream. You can never kill an idea. And I think that's probably what Moses is responding to. He'll probably tweet at me, but Moses, if you're watching
and
this,
call you all the most vile words in capital letters.
Anyway, he's told us he can capture Nairobi in one day. These are things he has said many times before. But I think that our focus should really be on the political situation in Uganda. For us as Kenyans, as Justine has said, the terrible role that we have played in this whole thing, it's something that I think all Kenyans should come out and denounce. I saw Ugandans in Kenya today having a protest. And as Dr. said, I think ultimately the next couple of weeks and months in Kenya should, if there's nothing else that we should be doing that you think will make a difference, is to distance the Kenyan people from the actions of their leaders. These people are not acting in our interest. Do you hear me in the camera? They're not acting in our interest. Kenyans don't sign up for this thing. We were not consulted and we don't sign on to this. And at the end of the day, when Ugandans are asking for alternative leadership and they're asking for a just future, when they're asking for their dreams to be valid, I think the misogynistic thing of focusing on Winnie is really unfortunate, and I don't think she should be a topic of discussion here, because at the end of the day, the person who had the dreams and hopes of Ugandans in their hands like this, and almost 40 years later is still, that dream is still deferred. I think it falls squarely on Yoweri Museveni.
100%.
And I think also, if it's like an X situation, it's still like a toxic masculinity at play, if we were to go there. But honestly, I don't think Winnie should be, as Christina said, she shouldn't be the focus of this at all.
Let me come in. This is a very interesting story, and it's been there. It's only that it's coming up now, but it has been there. My biggest question is, why now? If it happened, and note I've said if it happened, it cannot be undone. So I normally tell my fellow species, men, when you find that you have a child that is not yours, and you're finding it when it is already too late, close your eyes. It's a human being, could have been born anywhere else. Just let that person be. Because at the end of the day, even you as a man, we don't know how many out there can come calling. And we normally see it when people die. And you see people coming and saying, okay, you see, here I am, I'm the son of this guy, I'm the daughter of this guy. Mostly the sons who come. We've got the one that is coming, the one that is there of Baba Jimmy. He's there.
If we look at it for what it is, which is, it's a president who is widely unpopular, who murders his people, he kills every protest before it even begins. And he's charging the most politically influential person in his country, aside from him, with the highest crime in the country. If you look at it from that perspective and you just zoom out and see how Uganda is falling deeper into the hands of this very colonial but African power, it's very disturbing. And you see the trend, Abductistan, if you see the shout out to Abductistan, if you see the trend of what's happening in Kenya, what's happening in Uganda, what's happening in Tanzania, there's a very worrying trend there of abductions, charging people in court, and our president is good because, no, he's not good, but good on us Kenyans because you're very vocal. But I was interacting with people who aren't Kenyan. I will not name the nationality, but they kept saying, Wakenya mnapenda complain sana. Whenever you guys speak about your president, it's always the bad things you say.
Yeah, but like, let us complain. I think it's fair because it's not just people saying things that don't exist. it's actually affecting them in like every single sector of their life. It's not just, oh, I don't like this person and I have to yell into whoever's ear. It's, I am actually affected, and if this doesn't change, it's only going to get worse.
It's only going to get
That's
worse.
why people, I'll take complaining any day. I will call myself lamentations if I have to, but yeah.
But
The other thing is that when we take that position, we become, you know, the Kenyans who say at least. But at least it's not this. You know, we are always comparing ourselves to the worst outcome instead of aspiring higher for a better life. And at the end of the day, we cannot benchmark with the worst possible outcome, because that just gives a pass to the political elite that would want us to live that.
To leave that to them, to just be silent and accept this injustice that is happening. But
we also want to do one thing.
Let's
agree that public servants are not there to do us favors. So when we are telling them they are doing the wrong things, we are telling them we are your employers and we are doing the scorecard and you are not achieving what we agreed on.
You're failing.
When you do not rectify, then it becomes repeated, it becomes a complaint. What we need to do is to be able, as Kenyans, to go, once we have elected somebody, even the president, we should have a provision in the constitution where we as Kenyans will tell Parliament, you have refused or you have failed to impeach the president. And therefore, we, the citizens,
withdraw.
We are recalling the president. And we recall the president. And I will put it very clearly and say that the president we have right now, we should have recalled him long ago. Parliament should have impeached him long ago. I have spoken to many MPs, and I've asked them, why are you letting us down? Now, you realize the MPs are coming to the streets and complaining like us. It shouldn't be happening. I got into a lot of trouble when I called out Omutata, Senator Omutata, because of going to tie himself with chains on the street. That is a senator. A senator is a legislator. He is supposed to be in the legislature calling out the president and even calling for his impeachment. But he's not supposed to be on the streets with young people tying himself with chains. That is not right. That is not what we employ him for. We employ him to check, to oversight the executive headed by the president. So, at Concerned Citizens Movement, we have come up with a bill, a draft bill, that we want to push through Parliament to amend the Constitution and have a clause at Article 145 that will provide for recall of the president and the deputy president by the citizens. That will fix the perennial quarrels between the president and the deputy. It will also fix the Lone Ranger tactics of a president, like we have now. Thank you.
We would love to look at that bill that you're proposing. But in general, what I feel should be the biggest concern for Kenyans is that we have a toothless legislature, and you're seeing attempts to invade judiciary as well. And you notice that judiciary is also the place where a lot of court orders stopping policies that are unpopular from being implemented. But then that's a discussion that we'll get into as we proceed. Another thing that has happened over the past week was the loss of a life at a popular nightclub here in Nairobi. Now, this is unfortunate because we've only heard of deaths in Kenya of young people over the past months. There's very rarely something good happening to young people in the country. And this all leads back to a certain level of incompetence at all levels of government. And by this, I mean specifically the people who are supposed to investigate these crimes. And we've seen family members of this young man who was murdered at that club coming out to say that the club tried to cover that up. And the statement came out a day after the murder was unveiled to Kenyans on Twitter by the family members of this young man. There's this disregard for life in Kenya, and it runs to the highest officers in Kenya. I mean, look at the words that were being used: slaughter these people. There's abuse coming from the president calling young people wale watu. and nitawasafirisha. So there's this disregard, and increasingly in Kenya, you are afraid of two things happening to you. One, you get murdered and nothing happens, no justice is served. And secondly, you get picked up by someone out of the streets, and the same thing happens. Nothing happens, and you just disappear, and a court case goes on and on. And I'll throw in a third one. A lot of abuse for women specifically that goes without anything happening. I'm just so tired of it personally, and I find it hard to feel safe whenever I'm walking out in the streets. I don't know how you feel, Christine. Maybe you could lend some of your, should I say, heartfelt comments to this conversation?
Like you rightly pointed out, a lot of these things are connected and they cascade.
Yeah.
So when those who have the platform demonstrate certain behavior which is accepted and abetted and left to pass by the society, then what happens is that, there's this kind of spillover effect, right? When we value human life across the board, then the effect is the opposite of what we are seeing right now. And that's really, I think ultimately that's where the idea of humanity comes in. It's that at the end of the day, when all is said and done, a human life is a human life. Human lives are valuable. But the problem with the current system that we live in is that we rank human life, and some human lives are more valuable than others, and some projects are more valuable than others. And by projects, I mean political projects. So for example, the speed at which the deputy president was impeached, that the MPs were rallied, the speed at which public participation was done. I mean, I've never seen anything like that before in Kenya. But when it comes to solving our problems as Kenyans, suddenly their hands are tied as legislators. Suddenly there's nothing they can do.
Suddenly there's a process.
Suddenly there's a process.
It takes time.
Suddenly it takes time. Suddenly we should be patient, you know.
And
but when it comes, when it comes to this SHA shaitan nonsense,
exactly what
I've had people call it all kinds of things. When it comes to that, we should give it time to work. But when it comes to people pushing their own agenda, suddenly all levers are working, you know? And I think that really speaks to the disdain that you're talking about, the disdain for humanity and for human life, and that people are only valuable as voters. That's something that I can never wrap my mind around in this country, that you're only important for a vote.
For an event,
and,
one event in 5 years.
And for the rest of your life, just sort yourself out. I think that's unconscionable in this country.
Very true, very true. Speaking of SHA, that's also another open disrespect for human life that we're seeing from government. There's a system that isn't working at all. I think the Rural Urban Hospitals Association came out to say that they're suspending all private hospitals are going to suspend SHA because they haven't been paid since, was it December last year?
There's some that haven't been paid since December last year. There's others who've not been paid since NHIF was discontinued. And
that's
before that,
October.
And that there's some that are running 4 years on like 4 years back payment. So they've just been patiently waiting for the government to find something in the empty coffers to send them, which is crazy.
And meanwhile, Kenyans are contributing to this fund. And I'd like to throw in another fund, the Affordable Housing Project.
Yes.
And that also hasn't proceeded as it should for months, despite Kenyans contributing a percentage of their salary to this every month. I get angry every time I look at my payslip. I don't know how you feel. You feel that time, because I get so angry every time I see in the news that, first of all, I'm contributing to a fund to which I might not even benefit from. Second of all, if I get sick right now, I'm probably going to go bankrupt, and I'll put up a pay bill, which all of you will have to contribute to, but it still will not be enough because you as well are getting deducted every month significant amounts, and you're also aggrieved by this situation. I mean, it's often said that you're one sickness away from poverty in Kenya. So I don't know what you make of it.
That is extortion. Excuse me. That is extortion. Because, first of all, you are I mean, governments all over the world, they don't build houses for people. It only tried to happen in the socialist world, which failed dramatically. So in a socio-democratic environment, you are supposed to work on the economy, work on the systems, work on both the economic security, the physical security, and the utilities, and then let people do their own buildings, do their own businesses the way they want to do them. So right now, what really this affordable housing is coming up to is taking us to socialism, where we don't belong, because our system of governance is socio-democratic. That it is capitalism, but tempered with socialism, so that those who are completely unable can be assisted by those who have through as a government or a public collecting system. And once you are assisted, you are not supposed to be assisted forever. You are just supposed to be assisted to be able to start paying taxes as well. And that is how even things work, even in the US. Although the US is a capitalist, is on the higher scale of capitalism, they still have social welfare.
Called welfare projects.
Correct. Then you have countries like Germany, which are social welfare, the Nordic countries, which are social welfare. And you don't go there and find people who are not working, waiting to be given by government. Actually, it is very stigmatizing not to be working and paying taxes in those countries. Now, here in our country, you are telling people that you are going to give them houses. I do not. You are expecting a house from what you have said. You are thinking that you might get a house.
That's what everyone is thinking.
I know for sure I'll never get a house.
You made peace with this.
But they already came out and said that.
They said you're taking money. Yeah, they said it's just a tax.
Let's go with what you have been told before. So you are hopeful that you might get a house. I'm 100% sure.
You're getting.
I'll never get a house, but I'm getting my money deducted every time. And also, as an employer, I'm getting money deducted and being given to the towards the employees in their accounts. But I know these people will never get anything from this. So it is extortion.
It is.
Now, the other thing is, when you go deeper into this housing scheme, you find that it is not everybody who gets a contract to do the building. There are people who are pre-selected.
And I think it is that makes me push back against it's a socialism concept, and that this whole thing is supposed to pour back into society, because I think it's actually that idea that it's a socialist project is very inaccurate, because behind it there are some capitalist
There's very serious capitalism.
There's very serious capitalism.
Contributions are actually underwriting the developers that will be given this contract.
Correct. So it is simple corruption. It is simply theft from the public, stealing our money. When you go to SHA, there you are. You do the contributions. But at the end of the day, when you go to the hospital, you have a bill of 500,000. They pay 30,000. They pay 50. I haven't had 50,000. So they pay 30,000, but you still have 470,000 to pay. So and that is when you are lucky. Majority of the people don't even get a bed. Let alone that. I saw a lady who was in Kiambu Hospital, and she was there. She was never treated. She had a fracture, and when she came out, the bones were growing across each other, because now the body was trying to repair itself. And what I said is, why don't you take the hospital to court? They say, no, I don't want to fight with the government. You know, one thing I'm telling Kenyans is that we must be ready to take our government to account. It doesn't matter. It is us who are employing these people. You cannot, I give an example to the farmers. You cannot employ a milkman, then he milks and he comes and tells you, your milk is half a cup, but I milk 20 liters. How? It doesn't work. You fire the guy. So let's fire these guys.
Absolutely.
That is what we should do. So I'm very annoyed.
We are
very annoyed with that.
Very annoyed.
And I wish Kenyans would really listen to what we are saying and come forward and we hold our government to account.
I think there's a majority of Kenyans that hold the government to account.
Yeah.
But Justine, please share your anger with this, because every time the president is somewhere, I saw him in Western when he went there and he had the CS of health, and then the CS was saying all manner of things, but everything was in line with SHA is working. Need to register. And then the president does this funny thing where he says, "Kama umeregister no mkono," and then he laughs it off. And then later in the news at 9 p.m., you see that people are dying in hospitals because SHA, that people aren't getting dialysis, people aren't getting services in hospital. And a few hours back, there's a president saying that this thing works. Register, register, register. And the problem isn't that. The problem is that the institution that was meant to disburse this money isn't doing it. Justine.
First of all, I don't know what's going on in the Ministry of Health. I think every single sector that's supposed to come together so that the Ministry of Health works is just, there's nothing is even, like, they're all on different pages.
Yeah.
The doctor interns, their salaries were slashed to 70,000, and it's like, oh, you will just have to take this money. And I don't think people understand how many of the hospitals around the country are being held together by the labor of very, very underpaid doctor interns. My cousin was one of them. And there's a time he told me, I don't know if I'm going to make it, like to finish the whole internship. And I'm like, you've already worked so hard. You know, you're trying to hold their hand and trying to be encouraging, but at the back of my mind, I was like, if my cousin were to die in this particular situation because he's overworked and underpaid and he has all this, because he was still studying.
Yeah.
It's too much for someone to take. So that's for the doctor interns. The clinical officers are also not getting paid.
Yeah.
They don't have health insurance. When it comes to SHA itself, I just think the government is running several scams. Like, it's just like there's a scam on housing. Yeah, it's like as many scams as they can get, and like they get it legislated. Yeah. They convince a bunch of people to sign off on it. Yeah. And then the people who are supposed to represent us, as Dr. said, are not, they don't care. That's at their core, they actually don't care if you're dying, because then they know they wield some kind of power over you. You want money, you can go and borrow, and then it's like a whole performance of degradation that has become so normalized in Kenyan politics. And it really sucks because Kenyans sometimes participate willfully in it. They're like, but nimheshimiwa, you have to respect them. And I'm like, no, that person is supposed to work for you. If they're not working for you, you have every single right to call them out. If you have to throw hands, please, because if they're not listening to you, then they're not going to listen to your children. They don't care about any Kenyan as they are right now. So every single scam that this government is running is harming so many Kenyans. If they have money for the AUC elections, they should have money. Yes, and flying out MPs and saying, oh, they just paid for themselves. You see all these people in Dubai, and that is Kenyan money. Yeah. However it got to them, that's Kenyan money. Like, we should be more angry that these public displays of wealth and the president telling you to raise your hand, like, someone should be like, this is this is not the moment for you to, you should know that this is not working. 30,000 is not enough to cover most medical expenses for people who are stuck in hospitals, for people who don't even understand how the system works. We're not supposed to be begging for our lives. It shouldn't be the norm.
And at the same time, they're adding themselves salaries. Yes. Because you just saw the supplementary budget and there's a 6 million added on top of the president and deputy president's annual salary. And you're looking at the graphs and you see Kenyans' income dipping. Yes. And the president and his deputy are adding salaries onto themselves.
Yeah, and income loss has gone significantly up. Like, he keeps saying that the inflation is down. But inflation can go down and more people have been plunged into poverty. It won't matter. No one can afford anything. They don't have jobs, they don't have money. And again, I'll say a lot of us are just like passing around like 2,000 shillings among each other. And that's what we think is an economy. It's not sustainable. It isn't. It's going to kill us all eventually, because what happens is everyone starts fighting each other. If you can't fight the power, you start fighting the people around you. Yes.
But by the way, if you're not trading, inflation will go down. because the demand will go down. So inflation will go down, but the economy has not become better.
Yes, it
Yeah.
hasn't. And by the way, the economy as a general in GDP, it's shrinking. It's shrinking.
And poverty levels.
And poverty levels
Poverty
are
levels are
increasing.
going up.
And you see the president continually, day in, day out. Actually, I think he does speeches 7 days a week. 7 days a week. Every day he's somewhere doing a speech. And he's always saying, tunarekebisha, tumetenga, the economy is doing well. I'm getting you guys jobs, and you can see there's a job there. But all this doesn't translate into income in people's pockets, which is very worrying. But
let me give the president some advice.
Yeah, briefly.
Right?
Yeah.
Very briefly. If he knows the economy is growing, let him come to the streets of Nairobi continuously for 1 week and tell us why all those people are walking on the streets during working hours.
Yeah.
One of the best ways of looking at how an economy is working, I'm not an economist, but I know this from development, is to look at the behavior of the working class throughout the day. In an economy that is flourishing, you will not find people walking around in town aimlessly throughout the day. You will only find people there at 10 o'clock where they are going to take their tea, lunch hour, 4 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock. No, 4 o'clock you don't have. 5 o'clock when they are going home. That's done. The rest of the times, the streets are clear.
Yeah.
People are in their workplaces.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether you have been to Nairobi. Just go and walk. Every day is like a baraza. It's like people have come from a meeting.
Yeah.
And you see, these people are doing nothing. At the end of the day, they need to eat. Many of them need to feed their families.
Yeah.
From where?
Yeah.
That's why you who is working and me who is working, money cannot stay in our pockets. And that's why we are also not investing. Because every time when I look at my phone, the number of tafadhali nisaidie, they are more than the messages I get for work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I think it should be worrying for the president that he has hundreds of people to speak to on Mondays afternoons. It's a problem if you have many people gather around your vehicle on Monday at 12 a.m. 12 p.m. I mean.
I'll just say, like, you can't turn the country into a podcast.
Yeah.
You can't do that. That's not how you run an economy.
A whole mic check type
if you
situation.
really wanted to be about that life, just get a studio and leave the country to be run by people who actually want to create jobs. But if, like, you can't do this. It's not sustainable.
You can't be a president and a yapper at the same
Yes.
time.
Yeah. When does he work? Because
Content creator.
Yeah, he's like
Actually, he's on TikTok.
He's on TikTok. There's a time he had a video where he was walking, I think, from State House and with a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember
Touching
this.
trees.
Yeah, and I'm like, you're not supposed to be entertaining us. This is your job. Can you imagine if, like, at your job, Christine or Dr. like, people are expecting you to work, but you're just like shooting videos.
Or better yet, if your dad
I'll be fired by my customers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're home waiting for your dad to pay your school fees and he's creating videos instead.
He's creating TikTok.
And he's telling you, hold my phone. Like, this is important. That is crazy.
Just simama hapa. I don't know if that was a tripod or something, but he kept kicking things on the terrace. It's just very weird.
Now,
But
what is very clear is that nobody is really working in the government, in the
So
public
it's
sector.
a multi-bet situation.
And that's the reason why.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you cannot get services.
Yeah.
Or it takes you very long to get services if you do.
Yes.
You go to a police station, what happens? The police tell you, we don't have your weka gari mafuta so that we can do what.
Yeah.
You want to do an investigation, they tell you, no, we want to do the investigation, but there is no money.
But there's no money.
So you have to finance. So nobody is working.
Nothing is
And
working.
now, the worst thing, it has come to education, and you can see what we are getting. I'm a consumer of university outputs because I employed veterinary doctors, they are always coming to us. And you look at it sometimes and you wonder, where are we having people who are qualifying, who cannot even do what we call day one competence, that somebody cannot do a surgery, a simple surgery, they cannot do it. And yet, when you are leaving university or even medical school, you are supposed to do every surgery that is life-saving. You are supposed to be competent to do that. But now, it doesn't work like that.
And
now, finally, go to security. Look at what we have. There are people running around abducting Kenyans and nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows where they are from. But we all know they are security agents.
Yeah.
Because when they come, you can see they are security agents. So what does that tell you? It tells you that people don't want to work.
People don't want
They have decided you are on your own. And that is why we are telling Kenyans, let's take Kenya back to Kenyans from our leaders, because we are hostages of our own leaders.
And speaking of this disregard for a lot of things, there's a number of murders that happened, I think it's 2 nights ago in Turkana, where the numbers are still unclear, but it is said that fishermen were reportedly killed as militia invades a Kenyan village. I think the militia should be from Ethiopia.
Yes.
And I remember seeing the Principal Secretary of Interior Security saying that do not believe the rumors, but do not panic, do not believe the misinformation and the sensationalism. That's something that they like to cover the incompetence with. And so you see that, and amidst everything that's happening in this country, there is on top of it a possible massacre in the most remote part of the country, and a number of people entered Kenya from another country to commit those offenses here. And you ask yourself, again, are we safe in this country?
I think it keeps, it'll round back to the topic we were speaking about earlier. And also we've had this episode before where we spoke about Kenyans being concerned about their own personal security from outside. And the conversations online were very volatile, and they got a little xenophobic. But then at the same time, if there are no reassurances of like the security at the border, there's no reassurances about very pertinent issues to smaller communities, mostly marginalized, mostly invisible. Because if you don't interact with those communities, probably you're not thinking about them, but those communities exist, and those people need protection too. 100%. And that's not the only, like that particular story adds to another one where a Mandera chief was arrested for handing out IDs, like asking money in exchange for IDs from a couple of foreigners. So when Kenyans bring up these particular issues that are not only a security threat to them, but to the regions where they come from, and also the whole country at large, as you said, we don't know if we are safe, and we don't know if we can count on the security agencies in place to step up in the moment and like not just give us a memo. Because again, the writers in the government have a really secure job. They get to send memos, and they get to like...
They're more hardworking.
Don't be sensationalist. Oh, we'll write a thread. And I'm always asking, are these memos that are shared by the government on like Twitter, X, or do they go to other media stations, or do they just live on Twitter where they feel the outrage is there? Are other people accessing the same information? Do they have to go to maybe the chief of the area? Like, how does that information get to the people who it needs to? Because that also helps in building the security and the trust within the security system that we have in place.
I'll tell you, sorry, let me say this. I'll tell you this. Any government that finds itself explaining itself to the people, it is not functioning.
It isn't.
The government is supposed to be felt. You are supposed to feel that, one, I'm secure. But when you see so many people abducted, you see people who have died, who have been killed, those incursions from outside the country, and then there is nothing that is done about it. It just fizzles out. Then you know that your government is not working.
And it's losing control of the country.
And over the weekend, someone said the government should know that it's not an advertising agency. Like, we are not in the business of content. You know, like just do the work, and then the comms part of it becomes seamless. It follows, right? But if you're not doing the work, then we're just, content creating.
All you do is comms and
comms and narratives and things, and which
trying to go viral every single day.
with who, I think it's always a competition every Sunday at 12 p.m. Who's going to say the worst things on podiums?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that bringing it back to voting, you know, those communities that we are describing here as marginalized. The crazy thing is that ballot boxes reach them.
Yes.
So this tells me something about this country. In certain contexts, our systems work, right? But when it comes to the everyday lived experiences, day-to-day needs of people, suddenly it's very complicated. Yeah, and I think it's just a question of priorities, incentives, and who's benefiting from our current state of affairs.
I think the government is working for the government and not the people. But now we should move on to a very sad subject, but then I'll let you all very briefly tell me how you'll remember this man. Wafula Chebukati. He was the chairman of the IEBC through the last election, and I think through the other one too, 2017.
Yes,
2017 and 2022, both of them. And both of those elections had bad things happening in the country. There was the Chris Msando murder in 2017, and then there is also 2022, there was the murder of another IEBC official. I think there was a kidnapping of another one here in Nairobi at some point. And you also have Bomas. The choir was a good moment, but then everything that happened around that choir singing was terrible. The same happened in 2017 where you had an entire election being thrown out. So I don't know what you guys remember him for. Justine?
I'm trying to say good words, but they escape me. I don't
They
think...
always escape.
Yeah, I feel a lot of the representatives in most critical institutions around the country are just like, they're not trustworthy, and their work again speaks for itself, because if it looks a certain way and feels a certain way, like if there's a choir and there's an IEBC official dying, or an IEBC official getting kidnapped and nothing is being said and no line is being held for them, then what is the point of the chairmanship if it's not to speak for the people like that it's supposed to work for? And those are the people who are working at the IEBC. Imagine the regular voters. You're not even a thought in their brain. So I honestly, RIP to him, and I think maybe condolences to the family, but honestly, sometimes when a significant figure passes away, if their contributions are not marred by irregularities, they'll hopefully get celebrated, but this, to me, I don't have any words.
Yeah, this bad event hangs over their death in every way. But if you look at it in general in Kenya, I think he just makes me remember that we haven't had a fair election since 2002, which is very troubling, because how many elections have we had since? There's 2007, there's 13, then there's 17, then there's 2022.
No, there are 5.
Five.
There are 5.
Oh yeah, because the
17.
yes,
Oh, yeah, we
17
had
there were
two,
two,
we had
back to back.
17
Yeah.
By him,
So in
actually, he
17,
led through
17,
that.
he did
Yeah,
3
so he did
elections.
3. Oh,
We did
yeah.
3 elections.
And all of them, for some reason, Kenyans do not believe that the results were credible. But then I think this also should make us think of who's going to take over after him, because that also matters. I think I saw a tweet from James Smart, the NTV journalist, and he said something that the last time I interacted with him, he said that so James asked him if he's going to write a book about the elections, and he said there are some things that happen in this country that no one should know about. I think, to paraphrase what he said, that's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he told James.
It cannot be writable. They cannot write it.
Then you ask yourself, what is that
What
that you
is
can't
that?
write?
Yeah.
But then, to your point about like your vote being the only part that matters, none of it is real. None of it is real. It's like we're playing a very, it's a facade. It's the biggest facade.
Theater.
Yeah, it's theater. We are
It's like
in
people
one of the
have
biggest.
parts, people have roles, stage left, there's a floor manager, and maybe Chebukati was the floor manager.
Yeah, because I don't think if we're not having free and fair elections, even if you're voting in a very remote part, what part of it or what part of yourself is being recognized by the government, it feels like you don't exist.
Yeah.
You're just as bad as anyone who's getting attacked in open daylight and no one is coming to save you. Because if your vote, which is supposed to be a secret and it's supposed to be something that actually contributes to how the country is built, if that is being taken away and it doesn't matter, then I don't think any of the parts you play in the country will feel like they matter after the fact.
And I think that speaks to why we don't believe IEBC is an institution that we should believe as an independent one in general. You had something to say, Daktari. Please, in 10 seconds, because you're running out of time.
10 seconds?
Yes. I don't know if you can summarize it.
First of all, I will pass my condolences to the family of Wafula Chebukati.
Yeah.
That is in order because a family that is believed, it needs to be condoled. And that is being a good citizen. Now, I remember Wafula Chebukati as the person who bungled 2 elections. The third one, that's the middle one, that one was straightforward because the other contender did not show up. But for 2017, there was a big issue. 2022, that was even worse. Because you remember, there were some guys, foreigners, who had access to the system. And him, Kinoti, and Mutiabai, they held a press conference to tell us that those are our employees. Yet, before then, they had shown these are not our employees. And it was obvious from the reaction of somebody like Kinoti that this was not true. But those guys were not part of the IEBC. They were part of the rigging mechanism. So we remember him as somebody who bungled 2 elections, and unfortunately, that is something that we know, and it cannot be changed.
And also, speaking of foreigners being murdered, I think aside from Kisim Sando and the other gentleman, there was also 3 Indians?
2 Indians and 1 Kenyan.
2 Indians and 1 Kenyans, and that was all connected to the elections.
Correct.
Well, I think that's a history that is marred in a lot of controversy.
Not even that, even the returning officer for Embakasi.
Yes, that too. So many things happen every election cycle in the IEBC and to Kenyans, and we seem to always move on from it. And the election cycle is another one that we are very much looking forward to as Kenyans, just to see another round of incompetence. But I
wish you could give me something. I say something about IEBC. Because it's very important when we have discussions like this for Kenyans to know where they have room for safeguarding their rights. Now, you will never change IEBC by a people elected chair. It won't happen. Because what happens in IEBC, the political powers, both the opposition and the sitting government, they seek to control IEBC. Now, where you are left with the power as the citizens is at the voting. And where we need to safeguard our vote is at the polling station. Because that is where the election is decided. Now, what happens is that when they want to rig the election, they make sure that the unwanted candidate does not have observers, or agents at the polling station. And that is where the monkey business is done, then transmitted, and it is changed inside the system. So we need to be able to have copies of the transmissions at the polling station, so that if on the other end, the downloading is not corresponding to what we had at the polling station, then that is a bungled election.
I mean,
I think
good point you're making.
I think the change should happen earlier in the process.
Earlier in the process.
The people who are on the ballot box, the characters on that ballot paper in the first place, that's where a big question mark is in Kenya. You know, the 2010 Constitution anticipated and tried to create guidelines around this. Chapter 6, the Ethics Integrity chapter, which was prescribing the kind of leaders that we would want to see as a country. And ever since that constitution was promulgated 15 years ago, the political elite has consistently undermined Chapter 6. And so when it comes to the technicalities of how the votes are counted and transmitted, that's one thing. But the people on the ballot paper is the problem.
Yeah.
The institutions that clear them are a problem.
Yes.
And then we end up having what I call very mediocre choices to choose from. Yeah, because the process itself in clearing these candidates to even vie in the first place, that's where the problem begins.
Yeah, 100%. So many issues that we need to address. If you start speaking about elections in Kenya, we will have to do like 2 more hours of the show.
Yeah.
But then we're in the home stretch. So just as you were speaking, Christine, please continue telling us about the Africa Media Festival.
Yes. Yes. So as Baraza Media Lab, we are hosting the Africa Media Festival this week, Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to be at Nairobi National Museum. It's the 3rd edition of AMF. We've had one in 2023 and last year as well. Very well received. We had about 500 attendees last time, coming from about more than 10 countries in Africa and beyond. We have really good stuff lined up, some great workshops, learning sessions. It's not a stuffy conference. We don't have panels as such. What we have are peer learning experiences, some practical skills building, some questions being asked. And it's really a chance to explore the gaps in the media ecosystem and how we can begin to bridge them. Because most of what we've talked about tonight has to do with narratives, with how stories are framed and how they're spun and how they're positioned. So I think stories are at the heart of what we are able to think about, of what we are able to imagine and to dream. And we are holding space at the festival so that we can dream better dreams in the future. Yeah.
And so that media professionals, and I don't think it should be framed as just media professionals, like in the sense of what I'm doing right now, but people in communication as well, right?
Yeah, so we have quite a broad understanding or definition of media here at Baraza Media Lab. It's not just journalists like myself, like you and I. It's everyone who is involved in storytelling in one way or another, agnostic of the medium. The medium can be podcasting, can be YouTube, can be stand-up comedy, can be all these other mediums. But at the end of the day, what do people like us try to do is that we try and grasp a pulse of society.
Yeah.
And anyone who's in that kind of business is welcome. We're also going to have funders, researchers, folks from academia who study these things, the trends. Just basically a chance for cross-disciplinary conversations that would otherwise not happen. And Baraza is really the space for that. We're a physical space that we're recording in right now. But the festival is our chance to elevate that a bit and to have deeper and broader conversations in one place.
And now, speaking of Baraza Media Lab, a huge shout out to Baraza Media Lab because they've been hosting us since January. We're trying to get our house in order, so it's a bit messy, but thank you, Christine, for allowing us into your space. Yeah, and you as well are welcome to the Africa Media Festival, Thursday and Friday?
Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursday.
So we don't have gate tickets.
Yes.
So if you're watching this, you have basically today to get your ticket. So if you're in the comment section, you can, if you're online, you can do the thing, Africa Media Festival.
And there's something for you, whatever you do for a living.
Yeah.
And Dr. I don't know if you'll be there, but I think Justine, you 100% should be there. And I will attend for the first time.
Yes.
It's Wednesday, right?
Wednesday.
Okay, I keep forgetting.
Wednesday.
All right.
Just a question.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the consumers of your products, that we who read the news.
Oh yes.
Are we invited?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the audience or the user, the consumer, is at the center of everything that we are trying to do. We have a few sessions actually that challenge us, the creators, to think more intentionally about our audience and our users. And I think some of the best insight actually in conferences or events like that come even from the people who are not
audience.
like involved in the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
They can see the forest from the trees.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. So we are heading to the home stretch, kabisa, say for real. And Justine, I'll bounce this between us. John Legend performed in Kigali. Yes, no, on Friday, right? Yeah, on Friday. Performed on the 21st. That was on Friday.
Yeah.
I know you don't care.
Exactly.
I know you don't care. I'm curious to know why you don't care.
Oh, man, I'm not a fan of his music. And not like in a bad way, in just like, oh, he sings really nice, but I guess, like that's why I was not. But a lot of people were there, they had a good time.
Yeah.
Even though many of the activists for Congo were asking that he doesn't perform, his answer was, we should not be punishing countries because of the actions of their leaders.
Yeah.
Which is the art, separate the art from the artist, but for governments. And I am questioning a little bit of how that helps.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know what I would do. Maybe he wanted to come to Africa, as they say, and this was his only opportunity, so that's why he came.
Yeah. I think it's the same thing that happened. In Saudi, they like to call it sports washing. Now, I don't know if we'll call what is happening in Rwanda arts washing.
Yes, music, like the whole using musicians to kind of sanitize the images of countries is not new.
And football too.
There's, what's his name? This very good, he's like an old school American artist.
Oh.
He toured around the African continent when they killed Lumumba. I'm forgetting his name.
Oh, is it Louis Armstrong?
Yes, Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
Louis Armstrong was kind of used to sanitize the
CIA,
image of the US by the CIA, which is very problematic because a lot of our fave artists across the world are used for these kinds of things.
Yes.
And I understand getting a bag, but if you can pass it so that you don't have more people, that would be great. But also if you feel like you're contributing to people's entertainment, well, you have to live with yourself after that.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. Personally, I didn't like that you went there, especially with the conflict that's happening right now, and Rwanda being mentioned not by activists, but by the UN as a party in this conflict, and they're actively funding and arming M23, among other militias. So that's a very controversial thing, but I have my stand. I don't think you should have performed. Now, in this show, we like to do two things before we close. We like to speak to the public about something that they should be interested in, and then Justine always has 2 minutes to say the most nasty thing she can come up.
No.
She can come up with. No. But it's usually a segment where we do a bit of zooming out to look at the bigger picture, because these two segments should cover the entire of this conversation in 2 minutes. So for me, I'd like to speak about the same report that dropped as silently as a Drake album. The Auditor General's reports of the county governments, the county executives, and the county houses of counties in all 47. So I think a few words, or let me start with the acts. A few acts are the most misused and abused acts in Kenya. That's the Public Procurement and Assets Disposal Act, the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, and the Leadership and Integrity Act. Because if you look at these reports that I'm speaking about, they majorly touch on the Procurement Act and the Integrity and Leadership Act. Because I counted this, and the number of stalled projects in general was mentioned in at least 25 of the 47 counties in Kenya. And I know a lot of talk has been going around about stalled projects, especially after the activist Kebaso's tour around the country. But then if you look at this report, you can only feel anger, because 25 have been stalled. Not 25 counties have stalled projects. And another word, a few words that I also saw are ghost workers in almost countless counties in this Kenya. And the number was always between 70 to 100 of people who are in payrolls that they shouldn't be in. Let's look at Nairobi only. If you look at Nairobi, there are irregular procurement processes, terrible quality in projects, and also a trend that was seen by the Auditor General was that in the salaries, there were thousands of accounts that received double payments every month. That's scary to me. And if you look at only Nairobi as a representative of Kenya in general, the fact that this is coming out, I think that report covers 2023 and 2024. So that's only 2023. If you look at the past 2 years, that report doesn't cover. So then you'll ask yourself, is this trend continuing? But then if it is continuing, what is being done about it? Because also in those reports, you see a lot of unresolved issues from previous audit reports. And so if you have time, please download those 2 reports and look at your county. There's a lot of misinformation that is going around about the reports as well.
Don't let ChatGPT summarize it for you.
Read the thing. Just do your homework.
Don't be lazy.
And one last bit that I want you to know is 47 out of the 47 counties all had qualified opinions from the Auditor General. That means that they were unsatisfactory in their nature. They are largely good, fairly well performed, but then she noted dozens of small details that were missing in these reports that should have been there. And those issues that she's raising raise integrity questions. That's me bringing up this act, the Leadership and Integrity Act, or Chapter 6 of the Constitution, that is abused every 5 years in this country. So that's for me, for this public participation segment. Justine?
So thank you very much, Tom. I will say, before we leave, one of my favorite stories that I saw today was that the Nairobi City Council went to dump garbage waste in front of KPLC because they shut down lights at the city council offices. And I'm like, when you see 2 of your worst people, the worst people you know, beefing, it's almost entertaining, but at the same time, both of you are just as incompetent. And also, dumping trash where people are passing, it's a public health hazard. I know you wanted to make a point, but you could have at least gone to the KPLC offices and taken the switch with you. I think that would have worked more effectively than making Kenyans have to go through like a very because if people become sick, it's because Nairobi City Council was responsible. So the Dimples should come and collect the garbage, please. Another story that I saw, but this one is a good one. I saw a story of a young man called Brian Mushiri.
Oh, yeah.
So Brian Mushiri is a person with disability, and he was, I think it was during Valentine's, he wanted to propose to his girlfriend, and Kenyans saw his story, like the video he shared, and like, it was such a beautiful moment. Like Kenyans came together and like everyone chipped something. It was like a beautiful show of community. And Kenyans, this is a testament to who we are. That's who we are. We love showing up for each other. We love doing a thing or two, even if it's not on a bigger scale, but it matters. And if we can do that for each other, it means there's so much good that can come out of us. There's so much good that we have to give to the world. And we shouldn't let people who are in bed with the RSF tell us otherwise. You know, either we chase them from that bed, you know, get some whips and get them out of your of your vicinity, because you have such beautiful spirits out there, and I think we should build a country that's more about community, more Brian Mushiri's story, less whatever is going on with the foreign policy of this country.
Yeah, important. Less noise, more about who Kenyans are and what they stand for. I mean, that shouldn't be forgotten at any point.
Yes.
Daktari, is there anything you'd like to add before we close?
Thank you very much. Mine, I would like to zoom out on the Constitution. We have seen a story that is running. We want Prime Minister, we want to amend the Constitution so that we can have Raila Odinga become the Prime Minister. Never mind that Raila came out and said, I don't want that position. But I would like to tell Kenyans that we have a very, very good Constitution. Never mind what anybody says. Because this Constitution, the only problem is we are not implementing it. There is one bit that I said we need to amend. That is Article 145, where we need to be able to have a clause on how to recall the president. We are pushing that as Concerned Citizens Movement. However, even with that not in place, we come to Chapter 1 of the Constitution, which says that sovereign power belongs to the people in Article 1. And Article 2, it says the people can exercise sovereign power directly or indirectly through their elected leaders. Now, when we are in a situation like that, the one we are in now, where the president is violating the constitution and causing us a lot of misery, like what we are seeing with the RSF and the M23.
Yeah.
They came here and did the same thing,
Yeah.
plus the abductions, plus the killings, and all that.
Yeah.
Then it is time for us to instruct our members through Article 2 of Chapter 1 of the Constitution to impeach the president.
Yeah.
That is what we should do.
Yeah.
So I would like Kenyans to stop listening to MPs coming in and crying with us that things are not going well. We want them to go and impeach the president.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Christine, is there something you'd want to add? I'm seeing a comment here, actually. I should say this before you proceed. So many fans. Someone is saying here, African Media Festivals always deliver, and they're excited for this year's festival. And someone else said, I still want that house as well. We can't be financing corrupt rich people year in, year out. You can see the anger boiling. So yeah, let's just forget the other thing that was sad that I just said, because if we get on with that again, we'll proceed for another hour. And tell us one last thing about the Africa Media Festival. Why should, assuming I wasn't a journalist, in 2 sentences, why should I come?
You should come for the Africa Media Festival. First of all, because it's at the museum. It's outdoors. It's not a stuffy conference. You're going to breathe and walk around. The ambience and the vibes are just going to check out.
Aesthetics, yeah?
That's number one. First of all, the vibes are on point.
Immaculate.
Immaculate. But secondly, the way we've curated the program, as a lead curator here at Baraza, I was the curator of the program itself. We're going to have really diverse topics, not the usual kind of like things that we're talking about all the time. I went for a conference some time back and every other session was about AI and the threat of AI.
The big word.
We do have an AI track. We're not going to leave it out. But we've tried to figure out a way to have really diverse conversations coming from different perspectives. We have 4 festival tracks. Of course, media tech and AI is one. Creative economy is another one, where we're talking about the business of new media and how we can make it work for ourselves as Africans. The third one is social impact, where we're talking about narratives and how they shape society. So basically what we've been talking about in this panel. And lastly, we have elevating voices, which I think is where some of the gems of the festival are, where we are creating space for marginalized perspectives and voices and bringing them to the center. That you can do representation without actually being so tokenistic about it. And figuring out a creative but intentional way to really capture what is important in people's lives. So we have that. We have ice cream at the festival. We have,
so those are the things.
And
Oreo too.
Christine should have opened. Like we have ice cream.
That's the number one reason to come.
We have a lot of fun stuff. We have, lastly, just to close, one of the evenings we have a podcast that's being hosted by 2 11-year-old boys. They're podcasters, and their podcast is titled Mission Accomplished. And they're having a live podcast recording. I'm really looking forward to that one. I don't think we see children in front of the screen so much, except as the unwitting subjects of their parents who are creating YouTube content.
All the time. There's always a discussion. Make mics. Make mics illegal.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to seeing what Lemuel and Tendo will do, and that's a good reason to come.
Perfectly sold it. I don't think we have anything else to add. And we've gone farther than the 1 hour that we should have. And that's on us. We apologize. But that's all from The Big Picture this evening. You can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, at Africa Uncensored, Twitter, and our Instagram as well. We'll be posting bits of this conversation, but I think you should watch the entire conversation. It goes on after this. But thank you for watching. Hopefully we'll have John Allen back the next time we do this.
No, he said he's coming back on Jan, come back. Come back.
We've had guests occupying this show for him for the longest time now. But cheers for watching the show tonight. Catch the episode of The Big Picture, this specific episode, tomorrow morning. I think it should be up by midday. and listen to the conversation. And on Wednesday, go to the Africa Media Festival. We'll be there. Awesome people, awesome conversations, and let's see you in the next episode of Big Picture. Good evening. Thank you for watching.
Kitendawili Tegwa. Hey everyone, welcome to the Big Picture with African Uncensored this week.
She just said the picture.
I did.
No, I'm
For
not
you,
doing
you need to go first.
Equality.
My name is Barak. I have no other element of introduction.
We might be smaller, we might have not so shiny beards, but I promise you, we are younger and we are funnier.
Once again, ready to steal John Alanamu's job, and Tom's spot as a co-host is the crowd roars. I'm Abigail Urunga, your co-host.
I guess for those who like politics.
Sounds.
You have met so many sounds. I was like, we need to give you like a sound meter. Like, give Abigail a sound meter, like just like write
Say
down.
something, say something. Get it off your chest.
Yes. The news came in. Raila dropped her in the 6th round. Mahmoud won the AUC chair position, and I tweeted, Kitendawili Tegwa.
I try to be careful, you guys. I try to be better than most people. I try not to put corsets between my Instagram stories, which I could.
But the fact that this percentage is so large, and we're still having things like there's only one doctor who can confirm that you're assaulted. The cops will tell you if it's domestic, it doesn't matter. We're still reporting as journalists, right, about how it's a love spat gone wrong. No, guy, it's a murder.
Crime of passion.
It's not a crime of passion. It's not a relationship gone sour. It's not teenage pregnancies in Machakos increased during the pandemic. It's assaulters who are raping these children.
We're on the same notes, but I'll let you read them
Oh,
out.
so you guys
Like
have
have some
black
notes,
together.
yeah.
You have notes together. Okay, I see what's happening. DCI really likes to not do their job. We don't want the essays on Twitter. We just want you to find the things that we've asked you to find. Don't do
I mean,
you can't be giving me bullets one day and then flowers the next. That's like a rat. You know, like.
Yes.
Stop doing that. What are we doing? Our problem is not money. Our problem is mismanagement.
Yes.
And we continue to mismanage. And because we continue to mismanage, they feel like they can continue to borrow.
Do you guys know the role of the AUC chairperson before we get into the results?
Wow.
Yeah.
The role looks like to spend inordinate amounts of money from tax-paying citizens to have a figurehead that makes proclamations that have nothing to do with anything that's going on the ground. That's not the role.
Shout out to every single cultural creator on this particular continent. I think Africa as a cultural hub would be so beautiful.
We all enjoy human rights, but we're able to enjoy the average person in each country is able to enjoy a good basis of living. They, have education, have healthcare, and just have dignity and dignified work.
And I don't know if we're not angry enough or we feel too helpless to do anything about it. I'm not sure what exactly the problem is. But until everyone's paycheck is at zero, we're like not gonna do anything.